All right. Hello. It's been a while. I'm Bill, and my face is covered up by our logo. I just saw that. That's kind of funny. Kind of funny. There I was being all cool. All for naught. Check this out. Yeah, that's right. Okay, so this is gonna be a read through, a continuation, part deux of the read through of the DreadLore Corebook. Someone said they want it, and they're gonna get it. Oh god, they're gonna get it. This is the book. This is the PDF. It is free. The digital PDF. Usually loads better than this, but I've got OBS running, and I guess I could do this. And so my computer's running a little slow. Man, look at all these sexy tabs over here. That's right, it could all be yours. I think it was under rounds of bidding is where we ended last time. It's page 26. Goddamn, I'm good. Goddamn. So, I wrote this book. It's free. You can get it on DriveThruRPG. You can also get a DreadLore t-shirt. Oh, if you go to dreadlore.com, you'll find all the information and all that good stuff. If you're interested, blah 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 boom. Some notes before we start. I do intend on going through the entire book. Just how long will it take? Good question. Good question. If people watch this, it will take a lot less time. I was watching Professor Dungeon Master today, off Dungeon Craft. If you haven't seen them, then I suggest you do. He's talking about YouTube videos and all that bullshit. You know, I'm just not good at making YouTube videos. I like to do the live streams. And so I'm going to keep on doing that. If you dig it, great. If you don't, great. Thank you to the Patreon people. Nostalgic, Natalia Cline, Tim Roberts, Daniel Holker. I have your names memorized, emblazoned in my brain. Thank you guys very much. If you want to join the Patreon, you know how to do that. Links, descriptions, etc. We got a coffee thing. Does anyone use it? Does anyone use the coffee thing? We got that too. We do a Monday night live play, also called apparently an actual play. I don't know what the fuck it's called. It's where we play DreadLore, and we've got two campaigns. The Red Writ. It's a horror game. Think Call of Cthulhu. Modern day, 1982-ish, modern. And then we have one called Into Space. Into a Space. And that's dystopian future space marines. I was just watching the Halo series on whatever it's on. Paramount or whatever. I like that kind of stuff. And I really like the Halo lore. Unfortunately, the Halo series kind of has nothing to do with the Halo lore. It's like a big fanfic, but I'll give it this. I enjoy it. I think it's good. Yes, I wanted it to be basically the games. I thought that would have been really cool. I liked what they did with Cortana in the first season. In the second season, I don't really know why they made her look different, because she looks more like Cortana. I know Cortana changes, but I don't get it. Like, it's like changing actors. Why are you doing it? I am glad that they got the actress, the voice actress who actually does Cortana, to be a part of it. Anyway, this is not about that. But this is my intro, goddammit. And I'm going to say whatever the fuck I want. Anyway, right, space, into space. We do that too on Mondays. Monday nights, every goddamn week. 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. On Twitch. And then we post those onto YouTube. So this channel You can find all of that stuff on this channel. It's a repository of everything you would ever want. Thursdays, the Geeky Gamer Podcast. We usually have guests, unless they fucking bail. Then I get drunk and Ken tries to calm me down. My buddy Ken, Howl, and myself host the Geeky Gamer Podcast, and it's all about bringing people on and them sharing what they're geeky about. And it usually has to do with gaming, politics, whatever. It's hilarious and great, and actually much more informative than I expected it to be. So you can check that out too. It's on Thursdays on YouTube, 7 p.m. Check this out. Mondays, Thursdays, you're going to find content. We post this shit all the time. Go to our channel. You're here already. Hey, check out our shit. If you like that long form stuff, let's read some books. Speaking of long form, I have 30 seconds because I was going to do a 10-minute opening. I'm drinking not Earl Grey tea. I'm drinking some English tea. I think it's called, it's not Litany, Letley. One of my friends from across the pond told me about it. And I want to punch myself to death for saying across the pond. I'm not going to go into the whole bit about what DreadLore is. There is a first episode of this. Go fucking find out. Also, read the fucking description. Also, I'm going to be cursing. So if you don't like that, go fuck yourself. All right. I'm a nice person. And that's what this is all about. Me being fucking nice. How about that? You know, no other YouTube creator. No one? Only assholes. If you're in the chat, please say hello. If you're not, it's fine. 4 game sessions after the first, several stages of the game can take place. Which one comes first depends on where you are in your story and how the Arbiter decides to direct events. The Arbiter, which is the Game Master, a player, or the group as a whole, recaps the previous session's story, seminal events, and so on. The Arbiter sets the scene by describing what the players see or know, the world around them, and any antagonists which might be around. At this point, she announces whether the party is in the montage or the dread. If they are in the montage, players can interact with the world, role play with other characters, and so forth. The montage is also the only time players can advance their characters to become more powerful, gain new traits, and so on. The montage can be used to represent a time lapse or scene change, aka a montage. For example, travel time, training, sleeping, healing, and so forth. It can also be used to roleplay impactful, seminal events in the fiction. It's almost like seminal was a new word that I really wanted to use. Characters cannot, however, bid any traits during the montage. No. It is a time to focus on story movements rather than determining success or failure of actions, you sons of bitches, which is the purpose of the dread. If they are in the dread, players describe their characters as they interact with the world, other player characters, and antagonists. They do this by announcing to the Arbiter what they're doing. If what they're doing involves taking over some narrative control, i.e., impacting the story in a meaningful rather than mundane way, then they must bid one of their traits for the action. One, motherfuckers. One. Okay? We'll get back to this. Bidding a trait means the action is on that character. The Arbiter, in turn, determines if the player must throw down, roll dice, to succeed. Either way, she describes how the action plays out and also how the world and other antagonists respond to it. Kinda sounds like every other fucking role-playing game, right? Well, you gotta do this or else people get fucking pissed. Oh, a game book should describe fucking how to roll dice and use your fingers. Anyway. The Dread is the time for players to use the mechanical bits of their characters through bidding traits to activate their abilities, taking special actions by spending their various resources. For example, cunning, breath, pips, and so forth. Throwing, down, that means rolling dice. Using their equipment and using their proficiencies. The game bounces back and forth between the dread and the montage to tell a story. When there needs to be a conflict, or the possibility of success and failure, then the arbiter uses the dread. Otherwise, she can use the montage. Moments that are meaningful and impactful to the story are called encounters. Encounters are seminal moments, that word again, which begin and end as they need to and as the arbiter dictates. They can occur during the dread or the montage. Encounters have no bearing on game mechanics, but instead exist to provide the arbiter and players with a method of talking about different moments within the story. The arbiter controls the player's ability to recover their resources and traits, and so is able to pace her story through scenes. Scenes begin with when the montage ends, which all occurs when the arbiter says so. When a new scene begins, players recover all their exhausted traits. Rounds of bidding, or rounds, occur when the players encounter conflict. Rounds follow one of two orders of events and continue until the conflict is resolved. Side note, and I need to drink some tea. This is version 1 of the Corebook, and it is up to date, it is correct. There is an errata that I'm working on that adds a few rules through playtests that we figured out, but it's also tweaked certain ideas. One of those ideas I will mention right now. Scenes we'll get into in a little bit as to what they actually are, because scenes are very important. A new scene does not occur when the montage ends. Or I should say, what it says here is scenes begin when the montage ends. So this is a little bit misleading, and the errata corrects this. A scene begins and ends when the arbiter says so. That is actually what should be there. So this is a little bit misleading of wording. What you need to know is there is a montage, there's a dread, and there, as I just described, and scenes are something else that the arbiter alone controls. And scenes, when a new scene begins, when the arbiter says so, that's when the players recover their resources. And that's a big mechanical thing. Okay, that's in the errata. It's also later in the book, but it's a little unclear at this point. Rounds. A type 1. The world goes, i.e., the world action. Then antagonists take their turns. Then the players take their turns. This is the standard model, which can be altered if either the world or the antagonists have anything meaningful to do. World action occurs, antagonists turns, players turns. Boom. Rounds, type 2. This is a special action discussed later in the book, where one or more players spend a point from their cunning pool and go at the same time as the antagonists. It follows. World action occurs. Players who spent a point of cunning take their first turns. Antagonists take their turns. Players' turns. I want to do a side note, but I will refrain. It shall be explained. Taking a turn. Oh, I will do the side note. The errata is all... You can find all of this stuff on DreadLore.com. Literally, just go to the fucking website. All right. Taking a turn. The mainstay of DreadLore is players bidding their characters' traits. Hereafter traits. It is about how you do what you do. How you do what you do. The traits that you bid affect the environment in a meaningful way. Not necessarily a successful way, but a meaningful one. Let me repeat that. Yeah? Don't need to? Okay. The arbiter, the storyteller, listens to your bid and your description, and then folds it into the fiction, and the narrative is changed. Why is that hard to understand? I don't know. Don't know. Even if your character is doing something passive, when you bid a trait, that decision moves the story along. Mundane tasks, for example, those that are simple or unopposed, require no bidding. Think of it like a movie. When the camera pans across the crowd of faces, your character is one of the actors who gets face time when you bid a trait. The bandit who bids Master Thief might slink into the shadows so that no one sees her. But the camera would see her. She gets face time, and because of this, her story matters. The action is on you. This can mean that it is your chance to do something or that the story demands you make a decision. Usually the arbiter prompts her players when the action is on them, but not necessarily. Sometimes someone like Jacob will just bid traits and take the fucking narrative by the balls. What's up, Jacob? What if you bid every trait? Good question. It's addressed later in the book. It's also in the errata. For anyone who cares, Jacob, who's on the chat right now, was a seminal, that's right, playtester, alpha playtester, and beta playtester in this game, and is a 6th house mage to boot. I'm just saying. I see you. Usually, the arbiter prompts her players when the action is on them, but not necessarily, okay? Players can speak up and ask the arbiter if they can bid a trait to exact their intentions. But let us get down to it. I can't believe I wrote it this way. What does a DreadLore game look like? What's supposed to happen? I'm glad you asked, Bill. Bill? The action is on me? The action is on you. Oh, yeah, brother. I'm performing now, but it's the thing. The action's on you when you bid a trait or when it is your turn during an encounter. Players take their turns during the rounds of bidding and must decide who goes first among them. That's your problem. It's not the arbiter's problem. When the action is on you, you may do the following. Bid one trait to do something meaningful. And unless it is opposed or difficult, it's done. You and the arbiter describe to the party how you accomplish your goal. I will repeat that. You, the player, you bid the trait, and then you use your words to describe. Or you act it out in like a LARP. Whatever you want to do. But it needs description. That's the point of a storytelling game. Number 2. If your intention is opposed or is difficult, the arbiter may prompt you to throw down, roll dice, against a threshold. 3. Choose to not bid and perform an action without affecting the narrative. Now, this kind of leads us into what Jacob was asking in the comments, although we will get to it later on in the book. What happens if you have bidded every one of your traits? Ergo, what happens if all of your traits are exhausted? Well, you're in a little bit of trouble because those are your resources, and that's how you do everything. For example, number 3, you can choose not to bid, or perhaps you can't bid, and perform an action without affecting the narrative. So when you're out of traits, you can still do stuff. Mechanically, though, what you're doing is diminished. You no longer, as a player, have the ability to take hold of the fiction and make it what you want. Now, I can describe this ad nauseum, but I wrote a book about it, and I'm reading the book. So we're gonna read the book. Also, there are ways to get your resources back. We'll get to. Also, there are resources to be able to accomplish things. For example, breath. Having no traits means you are exhausted, like figuratively and literally. Also, this is Archangel. Isn't that cool? Archangel is also a 6th house mage, and you can see him playing in the DreadLore live play on Mondays here and there when we do Into Space. Jacob, you should totally come on Into Space. This is a picture of our game, big old game, and I want to say, I don't know if you can actually see my cursor. The dude in the stark middle is actually Jacob. Alrighty. Examples of gameplay. A handful of friends. We're not friends. Yeah, we're friends. Sometimes. A handful of friends sit around a table to game. As the game starts, the Arbiter describes the scene to the players. Mind you, really quick, notice that scene is not capitalized. We talk about it earlier in the book. That actually does matter. This is not a scene. This is just a scene. It's not a game mechanic. The Arbiter describes the scene to the players. Jacob, who could that be? Plays Domni, a sibling who's a retired soldier and mage of the 6th house. Emerus plays Hather, an Edlin assassin of the Red Hand of Doom. Ty plays Laz, Silta, who's a roguish underdog that gets away with almost everything. Chuck plays Grothrit Sol, a dwarven who's a renowned, if not somewhat barmy, tinkerer and life mage. Holker plays Murad Hatun, who hasn't been introduced into the story yet. Murad's an Ardavak warrior from the beaten fields in the north and former confidant of Hather. From the beaten fields, I'll be honest. Anyway, the Arbiter. You all wake up in a cold, dank prison cell. Imagine I have a girl's voice because the Arbiter's a girl, or is a female in the book. You all wake up in a cold, dank prison cell. There's a strange mist or fog that's swirling around you as you notice you're without any of your accoutrements. Groans from the players. Domni. How'd we end up here? That is not what he sounds like. I can't resist Jacob. Domni. How'd we end up here? Actually, Jacob is a really good voice actor. If anybody wants a voice actor, he's really good. And actor. How'd we end up here? The night before we were drinking at Just Ale Tavern and looking for a weaver who might be in town. Now we're suddenly locked up? The Arbiter. Yes. Laz. Really? Hather. Lame. The Arbiter. Calm now, my lovelies. At least you know you're alive, and when you get to this point in the story, you'll be in the montage. Grothrit. Seriously, though, do we know how we got here? The Arbiter. Indeed. We're going to do a flashback. It's the previous evening. Same scene as when we ended the last game session. So you've not recovered any of your exhausted traits. You're now in the Dread and can bid traits to affect the narrative. Laz. We're in Just Ale Tavern then? The Arbiter. Yep, same as before. You notice several Burks sitting inside. An elderly chap who's probably with the city guard sits by the door. A couple brotherly-looking Draudine or Dradine talking amicably over more than a couple empty glasses, are at a table with a riding dog sleeping beneath it. A rather dour-looking woman sits by herself in the corner, studying a large book. And finally, a sour-smelling, dark-clad Miroshi stands behind the bar and is presumably the barkeep. Hey there. I'm also Miroshi. Do I know this guy? The Arbiter. What do you bid? Not to be stereotypical, but Miroshi are usually mercenaries. I'll bid my background mercenary to see if I've heard of him. The Arbiter. Oh, yes. You bid mercenary and immediately recall his face from a poster you'd seen in your travels. This is Mairn the Liar. I whispered alas. The barkeep's a wanted man in both Azraelia and all Daloon for all sorts of mischief. To Hather. Worth a lot of coin? To the Arbiter. Do I know any details? Sure. Your bid is appropriate to know that Marin's an infamous charlatan who's impersonated various members of the Merchants of Kar and has ripped off plenty of notable Aristasi. Specifically, he's wanted for stealing weapons forged in Lapis Regnum and bound for Prime. Oh, he's also a known murderer. Domni. I check out the woman sitting by herself. She seems like a fellow mage. What's she doing? The Arbiter. Are you bidding anything to do this surreptitiously, or are you just looking? Domni. Just looking. You lean over rather obviously to get a better vantage at the woman. She seems to be jotting down notes in a massive journal. Probably runes. Probably a mage. Probably. Grothrit. I scurry up to the end of the bar and find a seat. I'll open my satchel and pull out one of those elixirs. The one you're pretty sure is illegal. Yeah. I doubt anyone in here knows alchemy. I'm going to bid my background, apothecary, to figure out what it is. Sure. You're an alchemist, so you can figure it out easily. Describe how you do it. You all might see me as I uncork this little vial with a purple fluid in it. I dip my pinky finger in and taste it. To the Arbiter. What is it? You taste the coppery wine flavor of life wine. Ho, that's definitely illegal. One of the Dreadien pops off his stool on his way to the bar, stumbles into you, Grothrit. Excuse you? The Arbiter as Captain Puck, an NPC. Excuse me, friend. That's me fault. Just getting another drink for me pals and myself. My name's Captain Puck. You want one? Drink, that is? Grothrit. I'll bid friend of no one to see if he stole anything. You check your pockets. Nothing's missing. Sure, I'll have an ale. Since we're at just ale, friend. Captain Puck stumbles off towards the bar, rams into it, and is dragged to a back room by a couple ladies with whom he clearly is acquainted. Easter eggs. Hey there to Laz. Hey Laz, see if you can get behind this guy, referring to Mairn. All sneaky-like. Laz, of course, I can get behind him without him knowing, but you're the assassin. Hather glowers at you, Laz, as you're about to finish your sentence. I'm a what? So pretty. Sure thing, I'll do the deed. No, you're right. I'm better at it. I'll do the sneaking. The Arbiter. Are y'all just having this conversation in front of the bar, in front of Mairn, the gods, and everybody? Hather and Laz. Nope. What are you trying to do? Hather. I want to get behind this guy while Laz distracts him. All right. What do each of you bid to do it? There's no need to throw down because you're both sneaky people. Hather. I'll bid assassin. Glances at Laz. Laz. I'll bid one of my 5 free traits. I hadn't filled them all out. Let's call this one Smooth Talker. The Arbiter. Great. Hather bids assassin and Laz bids Smooth Talker. Those are your jumping off points for roleplay. Your bids style how you do what you're doing. So, describe to everyone how you two get this done. Laz. Okay, You all see me slide up to the bar with a big ol' smile on my face. I'll pop my arm around this gentleman, Aristasi guy, who's sitting there. The Arbiter. Who? Can I spend a pip to say there's a gentleman Aristasi guy sitting at the bar? Yeah, why not? Upon arriving at Just Ale Tavern, you all happen to notice an empty seat at the bar. While you've been talking, plotting, and planning, you see a gentleman Aristasi guy walk down the stairs and plop into the seat. Laz and Hather, you're both nearby. You see that the seat has a bronze nameplate set into it which reads, Lord Adrian Eggers. Right. I slide up to the gentleman. Seeing the nameplate, I cop the best smile that I know how and try to con this guy to Adrian. My lordship, your cup is dry. Allow me to do the honor of refilling it. You're a con man and have no trouble conning people. The bid will suffice. Lord Adrian looks up at you with a curious look on his face, almost like half amused and half confused. Can I tell if he bought it? Oh, you already bid smooth talker, so he bought it. Well, can I tell why he's amused and confused then? What do you bid? In the meantime, hey there, what are you doing? I had bid assassin, so you all don't see me slip behind a customer who's getting up from the bar. I'll use their movements and the fact that Laz is making a bit of a scene to slink behind Marin. Domni, I approach this woman who's sitting down. To the woman. I see you're schooled in runespeak. Which mage's college did you attend? The Arbiter to Domni. Do you bid anything? Nope. She sighs at your interruption, but continues to ignore you. Laz, I'll bid my nature nerves of steel as I look this guy over. I've certainly seen Burks that have been shell-shocked from battle or drugged, perhaps. The Arbiter, bidding nerds, bidding nerves of steel, you can tell Lord Adrian's neither. Instead, you see something in his eyes that seems like amnesia. Excellent! To Adrian, buddy, you don't remember me? To Marin, barkeep, get my bestest buddy Lord Adrian Eggers here, the best stuff you've got. One for me too. In fact, everyone at the bar gets around on us. The Arbiter, you see Marin balk for a moment, clearly not knowing where things are in this bar, before he cops a smile of his own and reaches for a random bottle. The Arbiter as Marin the liar. Aha, yes, yes. Of course, Lord Eggers can have it, whatever he wants at this bar. Laz, of course we can, good sir. Don't be shy with that pour. A little more for us fine gentlemen. Hey there, I pull out my dirk and try to slide behind Marin. I'll bid assassin. Ooh, you already bid that trait, so it's exhausted. Right. Shit. I'll instead bid my nature killer to get my dirk at Marin's ribs. I want to be able to slide this blade into his heart and kill him if he moves the wrong way. The Arbiter, all right. You've got him by surprise, so you do it. Domni, okay. As they're doing all of this, I'll bid my background mage to the woman. Or I'll bid my background mage to the woman. Okay, seriously. Not just any Burke knows runespeak. We heard there was a weaver in town. Is that you or not? Out of book really quick. We'll put it this way, because it talks about weavers later on in the book. You could say that weavers are the bad kinds of mages. They're the rogue mages. They're basically sorcerers that can just blow shit up. They can't do much else, but they blow shit up. So, if you're a weaver, you're killed on sight. I'm hilarious. The Arbiter to Domni. What are you trying to do here? Domni. I'm trying to get her to see that I'm a fellow mage, one of authority. I'm one of the 6th house, in fact. If she's a weaver, if she's the weaver we've heard about, she'll tell me. The Arbiter. Fair enough, though your bid doesn't compel her to tell you her identity, but you definitely get her attention. She slowly sits up straight and closes her eyes. A wry smile appears as she closes her book, and then she looks at you as the woman. And who might I be speaking with, Sigh? She uses the sigh honorific, letting you know that she got your point. Donnie, about time. Listen, we don't have all day, okay? Are you the weaver or not? She stares at you unimpressedly. What a fucking adverb. Unimpressedly. As the woman. There's more going on here than meets the eye, Sigh, even to a trained eye such as yours. Domni to the woman. Cryptic much? We're on a very important mission. Are you who we're looking for or not? The Arbiter. With your initial bid, you can tell that she's not going to tell you. Also, Domni knows that weavers rarely announce themselves, being hunted outlaws and all. That said, it's clear that she's at least a binder and has studied the scroll of RuneSpeak. By your count, she's probably magical control 4 or more, quite possibly 6th house. Domni. So she's definitely a mage, either who we've heard about, or she's also looking. The Arbiter. Maybe. You've sunk some bids into this one, so probably. Can I bid something to make or convince her to actually talk to me? Give me some real information? No. She's not easily swayed or intimidated. Though you can deduce that she's trying to tell you something but can't say it plainly. Domni. All right. I activate the counterpoint ability that I have from the Codex of Mastery. What do you bid to activate it? Might as well bid counterpoint. The ability gives it to me. What are you trying to do? Make her tell me what's going on. Ha ha. Okay. Since you activated an ability which literally uses your foe's words against them, you can throw down to see if you can convince her. The threshold is really high. It's a 6. Domni to the Arbiter. That's pretty high. That's a pretty high threshold. Let me think about it for a sec. Might want to drop breath instead of rolling. Last, can I see Hather getting into position to shank this guy, Marin? You're right there, so yeah. Laz, as he's pouring the liquor, I lean in and whisper to Marin. We got you, sir. No need to make a fuss. I'll bid my demeanor believable. To Laz, he leans in and grabs your arm. Hather, I poke him to make him stop. The Arbiter, he stops. You're able to interrupt his action because you've already set up for it. Laz, see, buddy? You'd best come along with us. We've got a reward to collect. The Arbiter as Marin. Nice little lady. You got some skill sneaking up on me. Hather, wasn't hard. The Arbiter as Marin. Be that as it may, I've got a counteroffer for the both of you and your friends, if you're interested. Laz, an offer, you say? And what's your offer? The Arbiter to Laz. Marin's eyes dart over to the right of the tavern, to Hather. You can't see his eyes because you're behind him, but you see him point with his thumb under the counter in the same direction. Hather, what's he pointing towards? The Arbiter. Domni and the woman who are kind of just staring at each other. Grothrid. Seeing all this happen in front of me, I look over to the elderly guy, the one that looks like a city guard. What's he doing? Oh, you remembered him. Grothrid, you get a pip. Sweet! The Arbiter. You notice that the guard's now standing next to the door. He's got a grim look on his face, as he's paying very close attention to Domni and the woman. Grothrid. I pop off my seat and scurry over to the guard, saying, Hey, friend, I'm new in town, and you look like just the person that could help me out. Why don't you come sit with me? I'll buy you a beverage for your troubles. I'll bid Gregarious to convince him. The Arbiter. As you amble over near the front tavern window, you can see a handful of armed guards heading across the street towards the tavern. You also see someone else heading this way, a rough-looking fellow, most likely a warrior. By his build, you can tell that he's an Ardavak. Grothard, are they grabbing their weapons, looking for combat? I'll bet eagle-eyed a notice. The Arbiter, with your bid, you can tell they aren't in battle mode yet, but are certainly coming with a purpose. As for the ranger-looking guy, he's wearing a leather jerkin, worn travel clothes, and has got scars all over his face. At his side is a small war axe, without an E. Slung over his shoulders a longbow. Well, something's afoot. The Arbiter. The guard glances down at you, Grothard, and inadvertently smiles at your offer, obviously not including you in whatever it is he's about to do. This is the world action, as the guard. Hello, little master. I'd love to help, but am a mite busy at the moment. The Arbiter to Grothard. Your bid didn't work, but you got some valuable information for your troubles. Grothard. Oh? Can I tell what's caused this guy to call the guards? I'll bid Thergist, the gift I got from my apothecary background. I figure if I'm able to know the inner workings of uncommon sprock, surely I'm smart enough to put this together. The Arbiter. Ha ha! Good point. As you think about all you've seen, you realize the guard's been listening to Dominy's conversation with the woman. Likely the guard's looking for the namer, too. Side note, a namer is another kind of mage that's important. Grothard to the guard. No problem, to the Arbiter. I'll quickly wander back towards the bar as casually as I can. The Arbiter. The guard seems too preoccupied to notice. Domny. I'll just spin a point of breath to go to limbo. To the party. You see Domny adopt a pose like a philosopher. One hand on his hip, one stuck out palm up. Stuck out palm up. This is a salute in some games. To the woman. You say that something important is going on here. And I've said we're also doing something important. It's likely we're both doing the same thing. Why not cooperate and let me know the details? That way we don't get in each other's way. The Arbiter. Going to limbo means you're successful, but something unintentional happens. Or it's not a clean success. The woman nods in agreement, as Layla. Layla! My name is Layla. You're correct. I, too, am looking for a namer, or rather, I'm looking for another namer. As are a great many Zens in this area. Grothard. Guys, I think we have a problem. The Arbiter as Marin the Liar, to Laz and Hather. That's what we've been waiting for, to the guard. It's her! It's the Weaver! The Arbiter to Domny. You notice Layla roll her eyes when Marin shouts. Hather. I kill him. The Arbiter. You do! What do you bid to do it? Hather. Didn't I already bid killer to be able to do this? The Arbiter. Good point. It's the same encounter, so it stands. Yep. Describe it. Hather. All you see is me push on Marin's back. His face contorts, and he drops out of sight behind the bar with a thud. The Arbiter. At that moment, the old guard cracks the door open and whistles loudly to his buddies outside. Exactly at that moment, Domny. I spend cunning to jump ahead of them in the turn order. The Arbiter. This is technically still the world action. Domny. As the bad guys are going? The Arbiter. Yes. Doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo, rainbows. The world action encompasses anything that's already going on, or that's needed to happen to set up the encounter. Shitty Arbiter move. Ding. Domny. Fair enough. The Arbiter. The guards are running in. The elderly guards whistling. As you all see the Artivok Ranger buffalo through the door, body slamming the old guard against the wall. As he does, the door cracks and hangs off its hinges. Boom! Domny. Cunning? I spend cunning? Marad. I spend cunning too. Everyone. Oh shit! That's a character introduction? The Arbiter. Yep. And Marad, since you've surprised the elderly guard, you technically get to take a turn without needing to spend cunning. Hather. I wave to Marad. Hey, Marad, when'd you get here? Domny. To Hather. You know this guy? Hather. Squeeze. Domni, I'll take that as a yes. Murad, I ask him a question. To the face. The Arbiter, what do you bid? Bloodthirsty. No need to throw down. He's on his back, utterly bewildered and surprised, and he's injured to boot. Describe it. Murad, I plant my axe in his face, and he dies. Domni, cunning. I spent cunning. The Arbiter, all right, it's your turn. As you hear the whistles of the guards' buddies coming closer, you know they'll be here in seconds. Don't I go before that happens? They were already coming during the world action. Your cunning gives you a second turn this round, which lets you act on the antagonist's turn either simultaneously or just before. In this case, you're going at the same time as he whistles. Grothrit, I'll also spend cunning so I can go on the bad guy's turn as well. The Arbiter, sounds good. Which one of you goes first, Domni or Grothrit? Domni motions to Grothrit that he can go first. Grothrit, I hide this life wine. It's quite illegal for me to have, you know. The Arbiter, how? Hey there. Prison pocket? Grothrit, yep, I put them in my prison pocket. The Arbiter, you'll need to bid. I bid my demeanor, calm and collected. Yep, I'm not describing it, but you all see it. Moving on. Laz, can I do something? This is technically the antagonist's turn. Domni and Grothrit get a second turn because they spent cunning. Do you want to do that? Nah, I'll see how this plays out and goes normal. Domni, okay. I bid my flaw hates authority to use words of power to stop time for them as they enter the tavern. Side note. Using words of power is something a namer does. The Arbiter. What word do you know? Domni. I've got the word slow. The Arbiter. Sounds good, though you cannot stop time completely, but can only slow it. Nah. Domni. All right. I want to slow it down so much for them that they're almost at a standstill. Sounds good. Words of power cost a point of breath. Or you can make a sanity roll with detriment. What's your flavor? Domni. I'll go with the sanity roll. Sounds good. Do I say that too much? Sounds good. Laz. Nope. Just go with it. The Arbiter to Domni. The spell's pretty tough to pull off. The threshold is 4. Also, since you're slinging a spell, remember, you've got to roll your chaos die. Domni. Should I use my mind aspect for the aspect die? Sounds good. To Laz. I definitely say that too much. Laz. Yeah. Domni rolls his chaos die, a d6, and the result is 4. It's a 4 up. So he gets 1 additional success that will be added to his total. Side note, all this is explained in mechanics, which is chapter 5. Thankfully, the result isn't a 1. Or else his spell would immediately fumble. And then he rolls his action die, a d10, and his mind aspect die, a d12. He gets an 8 for 2 successes on his action die, and he gets a 9 for 2 successes on his aspect die. Did I just say aspect? Action die, aspect die, respectively. For a total of 5 successes. 4 successes from his action and aspect dice, and 1 from his chaos dice. That's right. It can give you successes too. Domni, 5 successes. Awesome. Now the sanity roll. Oh, right. Domni rolls his action die, a d10, and his mind aspect die, a d12. Domni to the Arbiter. I'm going to use one of my proficiency uses to get a mulligan on one of my dice. My mind aspect dice die since it's a d12. Will expression work? The Arbiter. Sounds good. Damn it. Laz. The Arbiter. I really do say it too much. Yes, that's fine. Domni. No problem. I'll use slow to slow down time so much it might as well be stopped. I've got magical control 5 prime, so it should be able to last for a while. Domney rerolls his mind aspect die, which is a d12, with a result of 4, which is 1 success. Domney, 1 success on the sanity roll. The Arbiter, that's all you need. As 2 guards race through the doorway, and the elderly guard turns to shout, time slows to a crawl for them all. To Domney, go ahead and describe it.
You all hear me speaking a language that's indescribable. It's as if the sound goes out of the room. The words don't seem to be in my voice. And you see the guards react as if they've been struck by an invisible lightning and pause. Even in the dirt in the air hangs them and moving.
I can't really do it. He does it better. The Arbiter, that's all the turns for cunning. The antagonists finish their turn. Laz and Hather, you see Layla step back from Domney as he uses words of power. There's a stern, if not impressed, look on her face. No, the Arbiter as Layla. Then, you are all exactly who we need to find this devil. I guess it cannot be helped now. The Arbiter says, Layla touches the tome sitting on the table, and runes, which were invisible, begin to glow. Domney, you're able to notice that the runes which appear form into a part of a word of power. Dana! As Layla utters the rest of the word to complete the spell, the room goes dark for you all. Everyone, what? Do we get a dread point for that? The Arbiter, ha, of course, ha, well done. Laz, I didn't get to go. The Arbiter, indeed, but this is just an encounter to move things along. There'll be plenty of chances to take turns, better ones, in fact. Hather, lame. The Arbiter, psst. The night ends, and we're out of the dread, and now, in the montage. Side note, DJ No Fly says, you gotta throw down, roll dice. So many voices and words are powerful. Yeah, dude, words of power are, pretty broke. Although they incur a very high cost to the player, or to the character. You only have so many of the resources. Literally, to use a word, whether it succeeds or fails, you have to spend a point of breath, which DJ No Fly will understand what that means. It's pretty big medicine, and you have a sanity roll if you don't use breath. Okay. Psst. The night ends, and we're out of the dread, and now in the montage. As described before, you're all in the misty prison cell. You wake to find 2 figures appear in the mist. One is Layla. The other, a lanky, travel-ridden Sibylline, whose face is masked by a long argyle scarf. The Arbiter as Layla. Now that we can talk openly, let me introduce a few other travelers, who I think can help us in our endeavor. The Arbiter. Layla motions to a separate cell where Murad Hatun stands holding the bars like a guy on death row. As Layla, I believe you know this one? Hi. The Arbiter is Layla. Captain Puck and his dog Peaches are there. The Arbiter. She motions to a mound of straw next to Laz. As Layla, we've 2 outlanders amongst us. The Arbiter, she points to a dark figure wearing a mask on the other side of Laz. As Layla, that one calls himself Archangel, and this is Shandor, an outworlder. With his help, we can together find this weaver. Domney, to the Arbiter. Can I bid to see if our stuff is somewhere around here? The Arbiter, no need. It's the montage. So you don't bid, but you can roleplay. Domney says, I look up at Layla. Do you have our equipment? Yes, it's just over here. I go over and grab my stuff. To Shandor, how are you going to help us? The Arbiter, Shandor. I'll bid my nature enigmatic to activate the Shandor slip to the party. You all see the mist envelop me as I pass through the bars of your cell. As I appear on the other side, the mist recedes. Domni, nice. The Arbiter, Laz, yo! The Arbiter, you notice a fellow sitting beside you in your cell. This Burke looks like an interesting fellow wearing a theurgic mask and a black leather jacket. The mask's black, has bug eyes and a breathing apparatus. There's a typo. Laz, who are you? The Arbiter is Archangel. You hear a muffled but enthusiastic voice. Hi, I'm Archangel. I'm not from around here. Laz, no way. Arbiter's Dark. The other characters introduced are, in fact, other players which the Arbiter decided to NPC. For example, she played them because they weren't at the game session. William plays Captain Puck, a Dredine musician and lush. Patrick plays Layla, a Sibylline Fuyan, who's an ageless Melanari namer and mage of the 6th house, also a Patreon person and a Kickstarter person. Brett plays Archangel, an Outworlder who passes for Silta, also in Into Space, our Monday night game. Archangel's a tinkerer and mystic that seeks to right what's wrong in the realms. Nigel plays Shandor, another Outworlder who passes for Silta. Shandor/Nigel is also a 6th house mage, by the way, and Kickstarter person. Shandor is just passing through, trying to leave things better off than when he found them. Steve plays Lord Adrian Eggers, a Sibylline, an experimenter of mysticism whose self-induced amnesia to forget his sordid past. Hey, if you haven't guessed it, all these people were Kickstarter people. Kaboom. And I will do some chat really fast. Jacob says, what if you bet every trait? We did that. Really depends if you need traits or random things through narrative points are very useful. Though narrative points are really useful. Yeah. Jacob has played a namer, obviously quite a bit, and actually helped develop the rules for them. Yes, so many people in this book are the Kickstarter peeps that made this happen. Laz says, no way. Hey there, to Archangel. They didn't take your mask? Archangel. They didn't ask for it. The Arbiter. Grothrit, you're sitting there in the floor as you notice the riding dog from Just Ale Tavern sit up from the straw it was sleeping in. Next to it is that Dredine, Captain Puck. The dog licks Captain Puck's face and he wakes up. The Arbiter is Captain Puck to the dog. Peaches! Grothrit. Looks like we're all finally together. Learn about the world. This doesn't make sense yet? No worries. That's how it is for Burks and Tyros alike. Which one will you turn out to be? We will get more mechanics crunch under our belt, but first, you need to know the world. How else can you run the game or hope to make a meaningful character in Craster? Too soon? Nah, you'll be fine. Old Cedric will make an old hand of you yet. Fret. I've found it's easier in the long run to jump on into the fire and explain things along the way. Here we go. So, look at that artwork. Look how cool it is. Oh my God, this artwork's amazing. There's the Sway Mountain right there. Oh, Jesus, it's amazing. God. Fuck. Whoever did that must have been a visionary. So, at this point, I'm going to pour some bourbon. What y'all drinking? Take a momentary break, lapse in the story. That was a lot more fun to read than I thought it would be. I definitely took my time writing this book. It took a long time. But I wanted to write it in such a way that it's not just a reference book. It's not just a rule book. It's supposed to be interesting to read. And I do know that can be frustrating when you're just looking for rules, a la the old White Wolf books, like the Vampire the Masquerade books, which were really masterfully written, but you just couldn't find the fucking rules for your life. I tried to balance this. Yeah, I think I succeeded. If you notice over Lord. Yeah, sorry about that. OBS just shat out. Hilarious. 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 Oh, and my face is down there again. SOB. Boop, boop, boop. Popping back up here. Swing. Look at that. It's magic. All right. Now that I'm back on, 2:30 is bourbon time. Yeah. I guess that makes it a pretty nice little break. Fuck. I didn't even know I was gone. Hopefully I got through that point of the book. If I didn't, then let me know, and I will recap. So, where did I stop? Yeah, I created this book trying to balance it being a rules reference book and also interesting to read. So, I think I accomplished that. We shall continue this. Chapter 1. The world is Craster. It ends as it begins, with a thought. Harold Grimm, an old soul. Side note. I'm not going to do too much of an accent here. Just because it'll get annoying. And, you know, we're talking like 500 pages of accent. I don't know. Maybe I will. My given name's Cedric. That's Sci Cedric to you tyros. I'm a bit of an old hand around, well, most every place a Zen's denizen. 2 feet can carry them. I hear y'all are adventuring out into the wide world of Craster. If that's the case, my dear Abney, then listen to this body and don't be balmy about how or where you'll go. You'll need to know a tidbit before heading out on whatever quest you've gotten your Burke selves into. By the looks of you, I imagine you're searching to accomplish some great deed or another, trying to forge your own greatness, eh? Write your names in the stars? Well, remember to steer clear of the wastes and the deep woods, and there's dark there no Zen should find. If you do find yourself in the deep, especially in the rainy wilds, and you've run into some scales, you can probably trust them for a night or two. They ain't too hoity-toity, but we'll expect you to treat them with respect and not overstay your welcome. Don't know why you'd head out east, but if you find yourself in the deserts of the Expanse, watch out for Trosshawks. You spy an airship, and for her, you best run for cover. Despite the cant of Burks, the Maroshi ain't barmy. I've known more than a few sauvages, and they were all apney as you or I, or me. They might seem a tad bit fickle fark at the start of it, but they know their sprock. For her, do they know their sprock? Be on your guard at night time. That's when creatures worse than any monster your mum's warned you about come out to play. For her, run for the hills if you spy a weaver or anyone who takes one in. I say run for the hills, and not here, mind you. Get my drift? Just for safety, avoid the overly artsy and any fickle fark tinkerers. None of them don't have nothers or nothers, if you get my drift, and you want to hold on to yours. That's about it. I hope to see you all again, her willing, and if not, we'll see you in the well, won't we? So, that's all in the cant. It's supposed to be somewhat difficult to understand, just to get you into the mode of it. The book flits in between that and then more of a standard. Jacob, I am Crester! Truth. Be a Zen. Be a man. It's a joke. No one gets it. Every Zen knows the Ting Shuo. Rumors and truth blended together into what some call common sense. Regardless, you lot need to know what awaits you on the streets of Craster's cities, in the fields of his countrysides, the wide open skies and seas, and along the roads in between. Nation vis-a-vis nation. The Calgarian Empire, otherwise known as Calgary, or the Guild Empire, is vast and has claim over the entire northern continent of Daloon. Each region of Daloon represents a defeat of one of Calgary's former enemies, now its provinces. Provinces are semi-autonomous, but pay allegiance to the Calgarian Empress. Provinces make up the Guild Empire, but everything's run from the Bone Stone City, or as the Zens who live there call it, Prime. Prime holds the Empire's seat of power, and as well as being a province in and of itself, and when a Zen talks about the Empire, they're usually talking about Prime. Every Calgarian pays respect to the Empress, but also knows who's in charge, the guilds. They control all manner of commerce, living, laws, propaganda, you name it. Their leaders, the Malaks, meet on a council called the Arazad Senate and decide everything, barring the Empress's veto, of course. The Senate provides a checks and balances to the guilds, and the Empress is the check and the balance to the Senate. I could write until the end of days trying to explain the guilds, and I'll go more in depth later. Suffice to say, you'd be barmy to cross them. Join them, but for her, don't cross the guilds. Calgary's biggest enemy is Azraelia, known to us old hands who've seen some of the fighting as the 10. These two empires engaged in a forever war over nothing but supremacy. The conflict started before any Zen can remember. There had been moments, seasons even, of peace between the Guild Empire and the 10, but peace never lasts. The Azraelians control the south, and more importantly, they control trade to the south by way of the Sea of Stars off the western coast of Daloon, down past Rainy Wilds, a thick, forested wilderness, and off through the scattered Divvy Isles, of which there are too many to count. Going there is to invite trouble, and I'd suggest you don't lest you're a pirate, on the run, or as I say again, you're looking for trouble. If you're not killed or sold into slavery aboard an airship first, you might make it south of the Divvy Isles to Good Trade Isle. Good Trade's jointly run by Calgary and Azraelia, and is the official diplomatic site when diplomacy's on the table. The island's also full of all manner of mysticism and depravity. Arbiter's dark. While some Zens are prodigies and have innate magical talent, Magica is most often studied and learned by Zens with enough drive, talent, and wealth required to attend school. Still, Mages do not stand on every street corner, even in the Bonestone City. It takes seasons to graduate from a college, and the scrolls within the art of magicka are closely guarded. It is also clear to everyone but the most barmy of Burks that magicka is dangerous. Those who delve into it are usually thought of as reckless, and worse still, are considered threats. Side note. Of the side note, you will note that Cedric is the narrator here, and his accent is supposed to change. The reason is he is a world traveler, and he's kind of got all of the accents put together. Is that a cop-out? In a way, it's a cop-out, but it's actually a character trait because the guy's a character.
Both the Israelis and
I'm so funny. Both the Israelis and Calgarians buy their theurgic weapons, ships, and intelligence from Lapis Regnum, an island kingdom due north of Daloon and primarily ruled by the Schnallfolk. Lapis Regnum claims neutrality and offers trade with any Zen willing to agree to their terms. Smart bunch. A size wisdom. Mystics and mages aren't the same kind of Burke. You'd best not confuse them. Mystics practice an array of magicka and theurgy. They use what they want, however they can get it, to prove their hypotheses. Mages will call them hedge mages, as they usually lack an in-depth knowledge of the art of magicka. That said, some of them, called shamans, have access to an entirely different set of abilities, the traditions of mysticism, that proper mages don't even understand. The more prickly mages stick to learning magicka. They go to school for seasons on end. They're fraternal and clannish, if you ask me, and so guard their secrets to the hilt. Only a Burke who's barmy in their cage sets out to cross any of these sorts, and most that do will end up in the well. Neither the Ten nor the Guild Empire do much business in the eastern Middlelands, where the theurgically inclined Myroshi reign supreme. That vast land and the government who runs it are known by the same names, the Miri Expanse, Myroshi Expanse, or the Expanse. The Expanse's capital city, Cathie, or in their tongue, Cathie, lies far over a painted desert. Then seemingly endless sand dunes, then more desert. It's protected to its north and east by the Wild, Nor'easter Sea, and East Sea, respectively. Most Myroshi Zens that you'll encounter outside of the Expanse are either outcasts to their society or a Trosshawk, an airship pirate. The Rainy Wilds is as massive a land mass as it's a mystery. Tradesmen and adventurers say, and are correct about it, that the mighty Zunth nation, or in their tongue, Zinth, rules there from the deep jungles, nestled between a maze of cliffs and rivers. Although attempts have been made, no government nor empire has official relations with the Zunth nation. I went once and stayed on the perimeter. The Zunths I met were kind enough to help my crew find our way back to civilization, but made it clear we weren't to poke around and about in their affairs. Other races and backgrounds. While a hoity-toity Mystica 12-7, or some Aristasi high on their noble titles, might define civilized Zens as being from the Bonestone City, the rest of us Burks populate most of the civilized world. You might be Denna, see your kind nearly everywhere and boast an unmatched ambition to drive to excel. Or maybe hail from the Myroshi stock, are as tall as an ox is long, and have wilderness in your blood. Even still, you could be a Zunths, stand taller than an ox is long, have literal scales for skin, and claim lineage of dragons. Or you could be a Schnallfolk with a mind set for sprock, strange gadgets, be fast friends with beasts of all sort, and be as gregarious as the most Apnizen. And even still, you might be crossed and benefit from a confluence of two races and gain a perspective of Craster like none other. We're all Zins of Craster, of Jacob. Burks to this earth, even if it's a dying world.
Cheers!
You find us in nearly every city, great or small, in the 10 or in prime. We're all different in appearance, oftentimes in loyalty, but our greatest differences are in culture. And culture is by and large the result of where a Burke grew up, what we call stomping grounds and old haunts. If you're from Kentucky, of course. Zens of different races have their qualms with one another. The Dinner is seen as the most hoity-toity and ambitious. Miroshi are considered too savage-like. Zunts are misunderstood beasts. Schnallfolk are more clannish than you'd expect, and are oft untrusted. Crossed are all mixed up and considered unseemly, a whole race of persona non grata. Thankfully, most of us speak some dialect of the common tongue.
Guohua!
Guohua. You'll note in this PDF, these references are clickable. Mages and mystics. If you head to a city in the Empire or the 10, you're likely to run into a mage at some point. They delve into what they call the art, what every other Burke calls magica or chaos, and their heads are up in the clouds most of the time. You can tell them apart for cause of the robes they wear. Mages can supposedly tell what sort of magica another mage practices in the same manner, or they can sense it in some artsy way of theirs. From what I've seen, most are in fact hedge mages. They dabble in magica. The truly powerful are the ones that spent a few seasons in the mage colleges. Don't rile one up, but you needn't worry terribly about mages. They keep themselves and also police themselves. Mostly. That brings me to weavers. Mages that aren't controlled, or can't be, and who wield unbridled chaos for her. Do not associate with any Zen you think might be a weaver. The Ting Shuo says they're demons, but I think they're simply dangerous. A weaver gets into a mood and things start exploding, if you get my drift. Them being around starts messing with Sprock and all other sort of technology nearby. Every so often, the Empire will send out a few hundred of their Ulick legionnaires to deal with a threat to the Empire. Most of us think they're dealing with a weaver, poor sods, but only the cow knows. Thergy as technology. Despite what they say, no Zen completely understands Thergy or Sprock. You never heard of Thergy or Sprock? Well, you will. The stuff's everywhere, but mostly in the cities. Thergy's the science that a tinkerer researches and practices to repurpose and sometimes create Sprock. Sprock are the devices with which they toil. There's several kinds of Sprock: clockwork, alchemical, marvels, and artifacts. You'll find it difficult to avoid Sprock if you go to Prime or Cathay, the Zunth capital. Look at that artwork, it's amazing. Arbiter's Dock. The technology of Craster is called Thergy, and it is anachronistic. Much of the world is medieval, while the cities tend to integrate aspects of the industrial era. Special locations like the ruins of some Arcade or Waymaker stronghold, secret places within the Bonestone City or Cathay might have futuristic types of technology. Advanced Thergy is almost assuredly misunderstood or adapted for purposes other than what it was originally intended. A size wisdom. You'd be a Burke to not learn what you can about Sprock, dear Adney. An average city dweller makes daily use of and probably owns clockwork Sprock devices. More affluent Zens own alchemical Sprock. Few but guild members, or the Aristasi who have connections, deal with marvels. Provincial Zens might use hand-me-down clockwork devices and the occasional alchemical Sprock. Those cities are thriving with it. He's talking about Cathay and Prime. Those cities, Cathie or Prime, are thriving with it. My issue is that a Thurgist has never quite been able to explain to me why Sprock works. Clockwork's a bit easier to piece out. This piece runs into that one. That cable pulls here when it's wound. An alchemical Sprock smells funny and makes a Zen act funnier if they use it too much. Marvels, though, that's the old Sprock. Items and structures that the ancients built. Ting Shuo's, that's those massive floating isles they call halves that make up the rims of the Bonestone City, are that way for cause of marvels. I've been to the wastes that surround the city, my dear Atney. You go there and you'll see what happens when a marvel stops working and one of those halves falls to the earth below. Now, old Cedric isn't a Luddite or anything. I've benefited mightily from the use of a Thurgic blaster in a pinch and an airship ride to get out of Dodge. Just keep your eye on the cow and don't trust too much in technology that runs on chaos. Seeing monsters. Now for the real information you need to know. In Ting Shuo, that will determine if you tyros end up old hands, or are instead heading for an early visit to the well. There are other kinds of inhabitants of the world who aren't too much like us Lao Bai Xing, the common folk, i.e. the common folk. Lao Bai Xing is the common folk. I call these folks Zens to be respectful and for cause that they exist on Craster, but I'll admit using the term a tidbit loosely. Some of them are simply monsters. All of them are either otherworldly or of such an ancient society that it might as well be alien. I'm talking about the aberrations, the abominations, abstracts, and the true daemon, the oaf, angels, pariah, and to an extent the paragons themselves. You'll find the more infamous of them at nighttime and in the far reaches of mountains or wastes of former civilizations, where they can hole up undisturbed. Others walk in the daytime, cloaking themselves in deception or as a necessary disguise, and moving amongst the Lao Bai Xing like any other Zen. Some live entire lives amongst us unnoticed. The worst of them feed off the ethos we've got coursing within our blood, minds, and you name it. I've encountered plenty about these horrors, and some of them more I've encountered plenty about these horrors, and some of the more benevolent ones. I jotted it all down in my notes. Take a gander later if you're interested in researching them for yourself. Long sentences. Craster's got many races of monsters, or Zens if you like, who you won't see in your lifetime lest you head to the ruined places, where the paragons still dwell. Where the demons dwell! Or to other thin places that border realms of existence where elfin and other things reside. Many of those Zens are as kind and aptly as a Dredine. Others are as evil comes. Still, none of them have the mindsight of a progeny like us. They're mortal, kind of, but they don't observe our customs nor our morality. You might be thinking that a Burke thing to say, for cause that us progeny are always warring, stealing, cheating, and all the fuzz. Trust in old Cedric when he tells you the lifestyles and moral compass of paragons and elfin would seem horrific to most Zens. They're horrific to behold, whether they're so beautiful in appearance that your eyes will water and your head'll swim, or so hideous they both will bleed. The sound of some voices will drive a Burke to madness for hearing it. Regardless of their moral persuasion, you best be prepared for meeting them. Recorded history. As opposed to the fairy tales may say, some acts aren't possible, though they're put into play. Poem segment inscribed on the Temple of Arcos in the Bonestone City. I can teach you much if you will but listen. Like burning candles, these words will sustain you in dark times, and in the darker times to come. A Theurgist to her apprentice. Craster's history was recorded several times by now bygone cultures. Some call them the Antiquois, or in the common tongue of Guohua, the Ancients. It's a fancy way of saying they all went to her long before we were born. Most prominent among the Antiquois were the Arcade. They were a culture comprised of many races who shared a common faith in the gods of old. There was also the Waymakers, a little Burks if you ask me. They built everything in those times and didn't think to leave instructions on how to use them. Waymakers understood theurgy and magicka in ways even the Malak of the Arcade Guild doesn't. Some Zens think the Waymakers were the great alchemists of old. Doesn't matter now, really. Every so often you might run upon something the Waymakers may have made, or a tower, or a wall. They built things proper, I'll give them that. You might sometimes find some valuable sprock, technology with a purpose that no Zen knows how to use. Tinkerers love the stuff and will pay good for it too. Most texts from times predating the age of progeny have been lost through the tumult of war, the ebb of time, or theft. Loads of places, crumbled and old, can still be found by those who look for them. Around the Bonestone City, the ruins of halves, floating islands and pieces of the city that fell from the sky, lie in heaps. Pay no attention to the malarkey of the guilds profess. Those places still hold secrets of our past. Relatively complete records are kept in the Annoloi del Respecto, or in the common tongue, Annals of Awe, a great tome originally plated in Valorum. The tome's now split up into volumes. Some are housed in ancient tunnels of the Holy Monast, Octemare. Some are hidden in the tower of the High Priestess of the Arcade. Others have found their way elsewhere. Either way, a body needs to climb the southern mountains of the Greystone Range within the imperial province of Antilla to see the ones we do know about. It takes a Malak's favor, or a whole lot of panache, to sneak you a peek at those tomes. Pause really quick. So, I actually said this wrong. The High Priestess of the Arcade. When you got this little umlaut over the A, that is the Arcade. As such, when it has no accent and it's a double A, it's the Arcade. Arcade. Why did I make it complicated? I like language. Ages of Craster. Ages of Domni. For the immortals and the deities, calculating time in terms of years lost is meaning long ago. For the immortals and the deities, calculating time in terms of years lost its meaning long ago. Amarilla, prophet of the cowl, during her peripatetic lessons in Maern, city of houses. The mystics of 12 and 7 claim that Craster is old and shall end. If there shall be an end, then there was a beginning. According to them, there will be 6 great ages. Ages. Before we're all finished. Then again, they're addicts of Licia Onye and see meaning in their own farts. As for old Cedric Kidder, I say the only meaning's in what you do now. Of course, history's important, as me mum used to say, so I suppose giving heed every now and then to the mystics is prudent enough. Arbiter's Dark. One season is 2.73 to 2.74 years. We admit to being far too granular. No complaining, loves. It took some greasing of palms, a little slobbing of knobs, and not a little charisma for me to gain entry into Hollow Antique Vessel. Hollow Antique Vessel. If you guys, a side note, so the ancient language is Esperanto. It's spelled just like it's pronounced Esperanto. Hollow Antique Vessel. The Halls of Antiquity, which is located in Gao Rim of the Bonestone City. They've got tablets there about the history of ages written in High Calgarian. Lucky for me, and for you, I speak it fluently. I made some illegal rubbings, and I detailed them below. Unfortunately, a long time ago, some Burke Malik, decided to split up the tablets, destroy a few, and well, you get the idea. According to what I found, there have been 4 ages past already. We live in the 5th age, called the Age of a Dying World. They prophesize a 6th age, called the Age as the Era Doth End. Mystics aren't a humorous bunch. The span of each ages is different from the rest, but is always at least several thousand to 10,000s of years. Oh, they counted in years and not seasons back then. Confusing to do the math. Basically, one of our seasons is a little less than 3 of their years. Da-da. Both the Age of Apotheosis and the Age as the Era Doth End are known as Profunda Tempo, or Deep Time. They're formidably difficult to gauge, as time was funny, or will be, and no complete records of their wiles are known to still exist. Don't ask me how I got into the Tower of the High Priestess down in Antilla, but I did. The Analoi de Respecto separates the history of Craster into 6 ages too, but it postulates the beginning spanned hundreds of millions of years, and far more. Some ages spanned in the hundreds of thousands. Recent history suggests that our most recent at tens of thousands of years. The true truth is that recorded history doesn't accurately document any of them. Bits and pieces of bygone ages have been added to the annals, but much is murky before the Age of Progeny. It's all a mess. The point is, Craster's old. The Age of Apotheosis. Apotheosis. The Age of Apotheosis is the period when the regions of Craster was still being carved out, when gods and immortals walked the lands and warred amongst themselves. It must have been a frightening period. Time didn't run then, as we perceive it now. May not have run at all, for all we know. Some theurgists and weird astronomers clamor together visions from those times and describe it in abstractions, a fusion of burning images mixed with insanity. The gods used Zins as their war tools and unleashed magicka that shook the foundations of Craster. Many of those fickle farks went insane after peering too deeply and drinking too fondly of Licia Onye or spice. Dune reference. The devout sometimes claim that the brilliant octet, that's right, the brilliant octet, burned the memory of this age from existence. The greater powers apparently made a deal with one another. That's why they don't interfere with us, save for the occasional appearance as their avatars, or when they send a deputy to bless one of them, they're devout. The Age of Alchemy. During the Age of Alchemy, the beginning of all things wasn't yet too distant a memory. The first denizens of Craster remembered the truce of magicka, theurgy, and the gods. It's debated who the first races were. It isn't known whether they were paragons, star children, or proxies, mortals granted greater souls by the power. I suppose it's during this time that Zens tired of the deities meddling in their affairs. For a vast group of masters of theurgy, who we now refer to as the Great Alchemists, got together and started mixing things up. The Great Alchemist built marvels beyond imagination, and rivaled the greater and lesser powers to prove it. I'm sure you've seen a few that have mostly stood the test of time. The floating Bonestone City is a prime? Pun intended. It's called Prime. The floating Bonestone City. It's called Prime. Do you get it? Prime intended. Pun example. And there's the alchemical clock towers to boot. All of those marvels were designed, crafted, and manufactured by by mortals, or at least they weren't made by the powers. Craster was youngish and alive during that age. Budding breath. Hopes and dreams could be made real, and Burks knew how to achieve them. This isn't to say that wars weren't fought. Of course they were. However, the age of alchemy is characterized by invention and innovation, more than any war they waged. Of course, all good things end, and the end started with the prophecies and broken alliances, which would forebode a darker and darker future. I'm getting less like posh and just more and more rhotic. I call it bourbon. The age of paragons. I feel like this is DreadLore, the lewd book. The lewd adventure. Next came along the age of paragons. It's blurry when it began and where the age of alchemy ended, the major signifier being that the paragon races began to propagate themselves and reign supreme. The first histories were forgotten as though they'd been mere dreams. Burks were more concerned with the marvels which they benefited from and maintained, though they hadn't created, than any enigmatic power who chose to refrain from directly interfering in their affairs. The hubris of the great alchemists, however, remained. It seems like the paragons forgot the prophetic warnings of their forefathers and instead reveled in the limelight of an adolescent world. Perhaps they simply had enough ethos running through their veins that they didn't feel the pull to explore or expand. Regardless, the paragons were content to rule the world they inherited, to treat with beings of power who still remained. For example, the elder dragons, primal spirits, and so forth. This is also when the first giants appeared. Again, the details are lost. It's unknown if the ancestors of who we now call mountain men had been on Craster all along, asleep beneath the mountain somewhere, or if they were created through clandestine means or for a nefarious purpose. Giants built cities of their own, hollowed out great keeps within mountains, and aided the kingdoms of paragons to fashion for themselves more brilliant cities than Craster had ever seen. The first whispers of trouble were felt as this age neared its end. The earth would quake more often and with greater calamity. Great storms, laughable by our current standards, would sweep away fleets of ships and ravage coastlines. The sun, still bright in the sky, would begin to slowly darken, and a new breed of Zen, similar in ways, but much different than their parents, was starting to be born to paragon families, their progeny, us. The preparations which the great alchemist had long ago made to delay whatever dark future they'd perceived would persevere for a long time, though the efforts at maintaining them ebbed and ultimately ceased. The age of progeny. I feel like Cedric is getting drunker at this point. The true truths that progeny are far different from their paragon predecessors. Indeed, in form, but more of heart and mind. Where the paragons invested all of their energies into building themselves up, their progeny looked outwards and began to explore Craster. The age of progeny was slow to take form and slower still to finish. It's one of the most documented times in history, and its start and end dates differ depending on which mystic you're speaking. On with which mystic you're speaking. Speeching. Highlighting this age is that the children of the great races took hold of the world. Veritable empires were forged, and soon after, war followed. Nearly all of the empires we know today were established during this age. Most of the bad blood between them originated here, or arose from some jealousy bred in the age of paragons. The knowledge and understanding of magica and theurgy paled in comparison to that of previous ages. However, efforts to actually began to preserve and investigate them. That sentence made sense in some lifetime. For starters, the salon and community were both created to research magica and theurgy, respectively. Also, Zens started paying attention to the marvels of yore. For example, the world machines, the clock towers, and so forth. If for no other reason than they seemed to be malfunctioning. It was a time when the calamitous weather patterns, the shifty tectonics, and all the world-sized proclivities that we're so familiar living with and enduring these days became uncharacteristically barmy and lethal for Burks. Basically, it's when all the shit started. The age of a dying world. Our time is the age of a dying world. I won't pull your legs with some euphemism about the state of things, dear Atney. Craster's old. Its kingdoms and empires are at war. Loads has been forgotten to antiquity and is most likely unrecoverable. The glory of what was has been spent and is no more. There's few of us Zens who've got much to hope for, except to achieve a kind of reputation that'll last. Call it a pseudo-immortality. You've heard it before. And you'll live it. You've heard it before, and you'll live it as you move out into that wide world. Know this, however, that this age isn't the last. The great are empires still standing. It's not the end yet. That's a typo. The great empires are still standing. It's not the end yet. Many elder beasts, though sleeping, still breathe, and for whatever they're worth, the gods are still there somewhere. Craster's filled to the brim with mysteries, dangers, and dark that should be brought into the light. There's still glory to be had. If we're to trust anything, we can trust that the Wanderer's song gained an escape from the doldrums of this dying world and forged his own constellation in the heavens through great deeds. Surely there's some truth to that. There's a glimmer of hope, despite our births occurring betwixt the age of progeny, when it all went downhill, and the next age, where it'll likely end in a fiery ball of primordial enthusiasm. At the age as the era doth end. There's not much for it, and you must know by now that old Cedric's no pessimist. But the age as the era doth end spells disaster for any Burke who sees it come to pass. Thankfully, we're not arrived yet, and by the count of any Burke who knows the fuzz, we shan't arrive for a long, long while. This will be a despairing, deep time, profunda tempo, when the gods will break their oaths and return to Craster. You can be sure that Zens and all the rest of creation will be warring until the end of all things arrives. The realms will darken, and the corrupted and twisted, the barmy and unintelligent of both mortals and powers will all roam freely in the dark of a once bright world. Yep, old Jack Burton. What? This age is the tale of the slow chill of death. No stars left burning in the sky. Days will be laughably short, and a seemingly endless nighttime will descend. People will only speak in adverbs. Some Burks think it'll all explode in a blast that shake the dreaming one awake. I'm unsure which final act I'd prefer. I deplore ending on such droll notes, so I'll give you this bit of the strange. It's not canon, and I wouldn't dare call it optimism, but there's one prophecy from the age of alchemy that we old hands sometimes tell. At the moment of the bitter end, once Craster's finally all used up, there's a light in the sky that soon covers everyone and everything. Some of us think it's the dawn rising at last. No clue what that means, but it's better than the black of endless nothing. Heroism, and greatness. Pause, I have to let my cat out. Beep. Susan has been sleeping all day. Irie. Let's see. I am still streaming, yes? Good. This will be a little bit of a break. What page am I on? 51? Hell yeah. Only 400 more to go. Although several of them are actually artwork and tables and such, which I won't read. I won't read it, damn it. I don't know what I think about Cedric's accent. Should he be... I liked the idea of it being a mishmash of everything. Going Cockney is just annoying, and also I'm not good at it. Comments? What do you think? Heroism and greatness. Don't be a Burke. Not everything that chances your paths needs be attacked. A Zen with a sword is dangerous. One dressed in plate mail's even more so. Remember that. While you may be heroes with brilliant fates before you, all Zens bleed. I've seen many an encounter prove deadly, or not, because of how it was approached. Players. Regardless of whether they do good or evil acts, a Burke's actions are meaningful in that they help forge the story of their lives. This doesn't mean every story needs to be earth-shattering or world-saving. The ages of Craster are utterly vast, and so you'll discover that your own part's important, and at the same time only a drop in the proverbial bucket. Each Zen, however, has the chance to add their own verse to the overall story of Craster. A meaningful verse. The annals record a great many legends. Of kings and queens, yes, but of the average Burke doing extraordinary deeds too. A Zen isn't considered great for being a good killer or successful adventurer. They might be considered great for taking action during a seminal moment. That word again. Whether they fail or succeed. Seek greatness, but don't depend on it. Trust me when I say opportunity's a fickle goddess, dear Abney. My time on this rock's afforded me a strange suspicion. Acts and deeds, which are truly great, are unique and can only be accomplished once. An incredible feat of magica was performed, and the demons lying wait within the between were locked there forever. The great alchemists forged the marvels we call world machines, and the earthquakes in Daloon were quieted. Deeds such as these will likely never occur again. Machines like these will likely never again be wrought. The realms. Few Zens know of the realms, and fewer still understand them. For most Zens, Craster is all they need to know. Miata Hull, or Miata Hull, mistress of the Azraelian house Hull. I'm not going to act like I understand existence, but I'll give you the best explanations I've heard. What we know of creation is that it's composed of many planes of existence, called realms. There are many realms, some of which we know nothing about. The mystics of 12 and 7 have discovered 5, which they've termed bound realms. They're bound in so much as they follow a certain coherence that's somewhat understood. The bound realms are the natural, the twilight dim, the gloaming, the firmament, and the aether, or the ather. Other than these 5 are a handful of others that aren't fully formed nor realized, places of insanity and ineffable things. Of these other places, we know only a few by name. They are the beyond, the between, the under, and the lady's veil. You could, of course, throw the well into that list of unknowns, but the true truths that nary a Zen's been there, or seen there, and reported back. If I may be so bold, dear Atne, I'll advise you to avoid the well at all costs, inevitable as it may be for us mortals in the bitter end. The rules of physics work differently in each realm. Time moves dissimilarly, sometimes not at all, from that of the natural realm where our world exists. If you aren't aware, our world's called Craster. Craster is protected, or jailed, depending on one's perspective, by an invisible field known as the Lady's Veil. Thus, the realm of Craster is sometimes referred to as the Veiled World, but more often than not, we call it the natural. There are creation stories aplenty, which have been handed down in the writings and oral history. Most of these myths have much to do with the deities who came from beyond the veil unto Craster. These deities, known as the Brilliant Octet, are said to have taken the dying body of an elder god and fashioned the realms from it. Which elder god was sacrificed, or whether or not the Brilliant Octet created every realm, or only the natural itself, is highly debated. Whence these gods exactly originated is also unknown. But they're thought to have been part of a greater society of what the mystics call star children, who hearkened from the beyond. It's a scary thought to think it's children who are our gods, but I'll digress. Mystics and mages agree there was a beginning and a source of some sort. Mages call it the source fire. Mystics opt for the beginning, and the Lao Bai Xing rarely put too much thought to it. Whether or not the source fire is an actual fire, whether the beginning was a purposeful act or result of cosmic dice being thrown, none bear much weight when a Burke needs some coin, good company, and a warm place to rest their head. At any rate, this great happening's widely referred to as the dawn. Some people consider the dawn as both an event and as well as a thing, and worship it as a deity in and of itself. Ha! The bound realms have a paradoxical relationship with one another. Each realm attaches to the others but at the same time are entirely separate from each other, or something to that effect. The mystics of 12 and 7 claim the realms are tied to one another somehow by the ley lines. Philosophical drawings present the realms as an ever-moving latticework. The cult of the Dead One claim as the ley lines are the living world's veins, I think. The bound realms are Let me say that again. The cult of the dead one claim, as the ley lines are the living world's veins, the bound realms are the remnants of the dead god's body. That's it. There's yet another mathematical looking diagram, which is oddly my favorite. It portrays the realms as different dimensions of a cube, a hypercube. The natural's plain for any bird to see. Looks like a cube, right? And the rest are extensions of what's either partially seen, observed only at certain times, or are utterly hidden from plain view. Pause. There is a... Here it is. I'll show you the little diagram of that right now. So it kind of sort of makes sense. You will note it's written in runes. Coming back. So now we're going to talk about the realms. One, the natural. The natural realms, everything you see plainly and experience. The natural realms, everything you see plainly and experience. Mountains, rivers, land masses, weather, its creation as we know it. Zens of all the progeny call the natural their home. In fact, they call it the world, and the world's name is Craster. Everyone's heard the fables that the world's built from the bones and sinew, the blood and divine ethos of Craster, some long-forgotten power. Some Burks take the myths literally, some don't. There are cults, like the Seekers of the Primordium and the Deaders, who make their own claims as to the origins of the world. They say we owe the wonder of the natural to the Dead One and the as-yet undefeated primordials. It's those ineffable things which we should worship. Less barmy mystics argue at length on these existential issues, though most can agree that there was a beginning to the natural, which probably had a lot to do with the brilliant octet. 2. The Twilight Dim. The Twilight Dim exists in a perpetual state of, you guessed it, twilight, neither day nor night. It's a realm of waking sleep, or that moment just before you wake up when dreams and reality are closest. It's where fey folk still reside under the dominion of a malcontent known as the Forest Queen. The chance that the Forest Queen's still around, or she's maybe sleeping. The Twilight Dim's the closest realm to the natural, metaphysically. This is how it was described to me. Imagine you're looking out at the horizon on the sea, and it's nearly morning. Just before the sun rises, you'll see its light and know it's coming, though it's not yet arrived. That's the Twilight Dim in every facet when regarding it from the natural. It's a place of almost, nearly, and just about. It was initially known as the Twilight, and sometime during the Age of Apotheosis, darkened. In a place where there's no nighttime, there's still shadows. Originally, these shadowy places were called the Dim, hazy and grayish areas in the terrain where Burks would have to struggle to stay away. The Dim's a sort of meta dimension or a doorway to yet another realm, the Gloaming. When the twilight darkened and became the Twilight Dim, these gateways to the Gloaming became more pronounced. The Gloaming presents itself within the Twilight Dim as strange shadows which objects cast. They're strange because they're a lack of direct sunshine within the Twilight Dim, and so no true shadows exist. As in, there's no sunshine, so there's no shadows, but there's still shadows. It's hard to explain. They're Stygian pools, or pits, rather, into which even the Fae won't venture, and I suggest you refrain from doing so too. A size wisdom. Observations of the realms suggest that there weren't always 5 bound realms, but there were fewer earlier in Craster's history, or rather, pre-history. Profunda tempo. As time marches on, creation's either becoming more chaotic and complex, or the very opposite. You can imagine the shouting matches echoing in the halls of the Arazad Senate between factions of mystics, especially when they're deep in cups. 3. The gloaming. At first glance, the gloaming seems like the twilight dim. It's covered in forests of all sorts, tall and imposing, and looks as natural habitat for the average flora and fauna. In fact, it's a cold, brooding place of perpetual nighttime, and it's populated and is populated by nasty monsters. Among the nastier buggers are creatures, vampiric monsters who seem to run the place. Other nameless beasts of yore are present, as well. Other nameless beasts of yore are present as well, that have by and large disappeared from living in the natural, though they may pay us a visit if they've a chance. The gloaming's a harsh environment, to say the least, and affects all who go there with a general malaise that eventually results in a fell and malevolent temperament, and in the worst cases, homicidal insanity. Mystics say that the dead god's nightmares and vengeful thoughts take corporeal form and seek to rule the gloaming's wild and weird terrain, and the mind and body of any Burke barmy enough to venture there. While it's an entire realm all its own, the gloaming and the twilight dim are inextricably tied to each other. There's chant that a Burke can hear the sounds of the neighboring realms, even see ghostly movements of Zens moving to and fro. Worse still, there's clearings in the gloaming, where the forest opens up to the wide, open sky. But instead of a black sky overhead, a Burke could see the full horror of the veil, writhing and complaining above them. Madness would surely follow. 4. The firmament. The firmament's a place of eternal skies and floating mountain peaks. It's a realm of brightness and glory, warmth and an eager nervousness to take action. It's the seat of Avakine's throne and her home. Depictions of the heavenly realm show throngs of the goddess's warriors, the beautiful yet horrific Valkyrie, training for battles prophesied to come. Other than Avakine herself and her Valkyrie, lesser angels also populate the realm. They supposedly fly to and fro, carrying deific messages to the powers and to mortals who are truly devout. The Ting shows that the firmament's one of the few agreed upon meeting places of the brilliant octet. Each power possesses a sky palace of sorts, more opulent than imaginable, which somehow float amongst or rest upon the splendor of clouds. The greater powers can view nearly all of the realms in full from these sky palaces by looking down into the far-flung reaches where no bottom exists, or to the far-off horizons where no horizon exists. Of course, the deep shadow of the gloaming's always difficult to see, even for the deities. My intuition tells me that even the firmament's got its limitations, but that's just my opinion, dear Abney. Despite it being the heavenly realm, its cosmic position in the relation to the natural is less intuitive than being skywards. Instead, the firmament's more adjacent to the natural, and save for the gloaming, to the other realms as well. It's the heavenly realm for all of the realms. This must be why nearly all of them can be viewed from it. 5. The Aether. Taking a moment to get some water. Here we go. Gonna do some more realms. If you haven't gathered yet, the book starts with setting. DreadLore can be played in any setting you want. It's better for deeper mind, deeper story games than it is kicking down the door type dungeon stuff. But you could use it for that, and we have. This book is fit. It's plugged into the genre of high fantasy and the setting of Craster. So that's what it's trying to get you into. In the event you just want to use it as a reference book, you would flip to chapter 3, or even chapter 2. So all this first part is just setting stuff. Five, the Aether. The Aether is another vacuous place lying metaphysically between Craster and the Veil. Time and space bend and act funny within this realm. The Aether is thought to be the dead one's waking dreams, and the place where souls must pass before going, wherever they go. More devout Zens consider having your soul sent to the Aether a kind of hellacious punishment. One theories that the cow, after she judges a Burke's soul in the well, might send the unworthy there. Of course, devout of the cow think it's all hogwash. Makes a Burke think, though. The Aether takes the shape of dark dreams. It's a floating cosmos with denizens all atone. The nature of these denizens is a mystery. They're described as similar to spirits, abstracts, or a blending of the two. Perhaps they're beings trapped in the Aether, or they're the sentient manifestations of the Aether itself, or both. No matter the true, it's surely a barmy place. As expected, the barmiest and most fickle folk among us, soothsayers and diviners, favor the place. They try with all their might to peer into it, and hoping they might commune with beings there for answers. More than a handful will never return, still right in the head. You couldn't point to the Aether on any map of the natural, but you might be able to within the firmament. The relationship between these two realms is similar to that of the natural and the twilight dim. See, here's a map. Check it out. Pro tip, y'all. While this is written in runes, the numbers do correlate with the English. Is it too much work? Yeah, it is. 6, the Beyond. The Beyond isn't a realm per se, and isn't counted as one of the 5 bound realms. It's instead the name of what's outside all reach of the realms. It's the distant primordium that's entirely separate from Craster, simultaneously existing and not existing. To behold this realm's to test your sanity, and oft as not spells disaster for mortals. Mystics officially define it as that ineffable, unknowable, and infinite space beyond the Lady's Veil, anything beyond creation, and wholly not part of the dead god. Or so they say. What's out there is beyond... What's out there in the beyonds, left to speculation. But I'll warrant it's nothing good for us. If anyone knows the specifics, it'd be the greater powers, and they're either not talking or choose to forget. Weirdos claim there's intelligent beings out there, the abstracts. Abstracts are of a completely different ilk than those of Craster in shape, size, and thought. One can never be sure of their true intentions, and they're utterly difficult to describe, let alone understand. They're less moral than we'd like, and definitely have no plans of their own for Craster. Fuck. They're less moral than we'd like, and definitely have plans of their own for Craster, if they could ever find a way to enact them. Some Burks think the powers themselves came from the beyond, before Craster existed. Whether they willingly left the stars, or were forced to tuck tail and run, is one of Craster's many mysteries. Alright, we're almost done with realms. 7. The Between. The Between is another partial realm, an intersection, or a sliding door between Craster and the other realms. One might say it's the crossroads where realms meet. Mages and shamans who've got the means to tap into it describe it as the embodiment of friction and movement. While there, you'll feel both extreme acceleration and at the same time, like you're being squeezed to death. Granted, these folk don't stay in the between for long. They use it as a means for viewing other realms or for traveling to other places within the realms. Lingering in the between might not be possible, nor advisable for mortals at least. A Burk might get a full-on glimpse of the Lady's Veil and go barmy from the sight of it. Or something foul and otherworldly might just as well snatch them up. The gabs that the Lady Veils supposedly resides there, in the ever-moving realm between realms, and holds her long vigil over the veil. 8. The Under. The Under is a place of horror replete with demons and fragments of the dead god's consciousness and memory. It's likened to a roiling black sea that stretches on and on until breaking every so often, against obsidian land masses. This sea isn't necessarily water, dear Abney, so don't be confused. The Under's named so because it acts as a kind of false reflection of the natural and parts of the other realms. On a metaphysical map, it's literally placed under the realms like the reflection of a mountain on a lake, imperfect, hazy, and opposite. The Under's utterly unlike the natural in that its dimensions, for example, width, height, and depth, are sometimes mutable. They can be changed with a severe enough emotion or force of will. It's thought to be the origins of demons, or a spawning pool of sorts. While lesser demons are birthed here from the corrupted souls of mortals, greater demons return here to regain strength upon their deaths. Some depictions of the Under show it as the jagged pieces of the world's destruction. As entropy wears on, these pieces are pulled and twisted into nightmarish forms that slowly float downward into unrest and oblivion. They are the nightmares of the dead god, never quite destroyed, nor are they remembered. It's a nigh eternal purgatory for the Godhead that lost its being so the world might exist. Take a quick look at this table. Table 1.1 time. So, one day is around 30 hours. This is called a tien, or tian. 1 week is 10 days, also called a mina. 1 month, or 4 weeks, or 40 days. Half a season, known as an accord. This is 50 weeks, or 500 days. And 1 season, 25 months, also 100 weeks, or 1,000 days. That's a season. Now, you might ask, why is this so complicated? It doesn't have to be. You don't have to use this stuff. You can use whatever you want. But the idea of this DreadLore Corebook is to be
thick.
It's supposed to provide you with loads of depth. If you want to dive into it, go full bore. You've got language, you've got terms. You can do what you want with it. But you don't have to. And the book does go into that. It really is up to you. And this is assuming you're using the setting of Craster. You know, if you go to either one of our games on DreadLore Live Play on Monday, the Red Writ, it's set in 1982 Detroit. I mean, you know, they use days and weeks and the whole thing. Granted, I am slowly but surely pouring water, introducing Craster into that world. The other campaign, Into Space, it's near future Starship Troopers style game, where yes, of course, there's bits and pieces of this stuff, but it's in a different realm. It doesn't use these rules. Regardless, use it as you will. And I think it's cool. I think lore is cool. Number 9 for the moneymaker. The Lady's Veil. The Lady's Veil, often simply the Veil, is a quasi-invisible barrier that protects Craster from the chaos and hell that exists outside of the realms within the beyond. As you've probably guessed, the Veil's named for the greater power who's ever watchful and maintains it, the Lady of Veils. If you could point at the Veil on a map, it'd surround Craster, or it'd be drawn to separate the beyond from everything else. The Veil itself cannot be seen with the naked eye, though some magicka reveals it, usually through a mishap, and some theurgic devices can perceive it. Observing the Veil never helped a Burke keep their sanity. Weirdos go barmy enough when they sense the damned thing. It's as long as the sky, they say, with infinitely complex swirling pools of indigo and black. They claim there are faces with voices within the Veil that speak truths to you, whether you want to listen or not. Sound peaceful? Don't think so. Without the Lady's Veil, we'd all be food for the horrific monsters called abstracts, not to mention having no defense against the other Star Children's vengeance. Religion warns that while our benevolent greater powers attempt to challenge them, the Star Children vastly outnumber our poor gods. No thing's perfect, dear Abney, and neither is the Veil. All right. Time is funny is where we're going to end tonight. Did quite a bit. Got to page 57. Went through about 18 accents. Let me know what you think. Do you enjoy the way that Cedric talks? Do you think it should be more consistent, slower, just read normally? What is your preference? Let me know in comments and chat and all that good stuff. Yep, and we can go from there. So today we got to page 57. Hell yeah. Time is funny. All right, that's what we're going to do for tonight. I wanted to thank the Patreon peoples. Tim Roberts, Daniel Holker, Nostalgic, Natalia Cline. Thank you guys very much. Hooking it up. Keeping me sane. Also wanted to give a shout out to the GGP, Geeky Gamer Podcast. You can catch it on Thursdays at 7 p.m. on YouTube. It's also a podcast, as evidenced by the name. You can find it on this channel in a lot of different places. Guess what happens on Monday nights? DreadLore Live Play. Mondays, every Monday on Twitch, we go live and we do one of our campaigns. The Red Writ is the main one, and then we have Into Space, where we have guest stars In the event you would like to try out DreadLore, let us know. You can do so in comments. You can do so via Twitter. Contact us. It's all in the descriptions, guys. Into Space would be the campaign that you jump into. If you want to find out or hear what's going on in those, then... Sorry, I'm doing multiple things and can't talk at the same time. If you want to find out what's going on in those, we got all the episodes on YouTube. They're all over Spotify. I have to say the same thing over and over and over. It's as though people don't know. Yeah. Music is going to be by Intrepid Adventurers tonight. We also have all lowercase letters. Give those guys some love. They're on all the social medias, and playing their stuff helps them out quite a bit. All right. I'm going to lead you all out with a little bit of Intrepid Adventurers. Thanks to those who jumped on. And thanks to those that have, sorry, I'm doing multiple things at once again. Thanks to those that are watching this. I appreciate it. Do let me know what you enjoy, what you don't enjoy, and I will attempt to listen. And, if you want more of these, because it's a lot of time and effort. Someday my computer will work, and this will happen. All right. See you guys next time. When it all is going to happen, it's going to blow up. You're going to love me for it. Dead inside my head. Quite except by his best. Time rolls out of bed. Walks in the room and out. And called her up this morning. She blew me off, I'm boring, turn off my head, screams to my bass burns red, yeah. All's forgotten instead, what's it about me? I'm screaming at shadows, walking through windows. Work's all done, it's never done, except the life of one. Do not worry. My best friend, yeah. All's forgotten instead. What's it about me? I'll turn off my head. Scream to my best friend, yeah.